What's going on, everyone? Shout out to everyone joining us live. This is a live discussion that I'm clipping out to share with everyone out there. I'm doing my very first tier list of anything. And in particular, we're doing a tier list for, as you all can see, Marvel Phase 4. That includes all of the movies, all of the shows. I'm going to share with you all my rankings. So before we get into all that, thumbs up, comment, share, and of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So with that being said, I'll do mine first, and then I'm going to read your comments at the end and compare our list and see who is the ultimate Marvel fan. No, in all seriousness. All right, so WandaVision is the first project. And let's just get this out of the way. It's an A for me, y'all. It's an A for me. Reason being, WandaVision to me is one of the few projects, let alone TV shows, that stuck to the original premise of the show, right? The idea of WandaVision was to explore Wanda after losing her loved one, which was Vision, which, if I'm being honest, building to that was a little rough. We never truly saw them as a couple. They met each other for the first time briefly in Age of Ultron. Then we pivot over to Civil War. Wasn't really romantic. It was more or less like we share a common thing, which is we're kind of isolated. We're kind of the outsiders. So they shared that. She put Vision down. We know how that went in the film. And then we see them again in Infinity War. By that point, they've been together for a year or so, kind of off the grid, not checking in with Cap and Natasha, but they're doing their thing. And then they kiss, and obviously things are broken up due to the children of Thanos. So then we get into this series, and even though we didn't spend as much time with them, the way Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff presented the grief, which is a big theme in Phase 4, is losing what we lost from Endgame, but also you lost a part of yourself throughout the blip. Even if you came back, you still lost time. You still, in some cases, these people lost their loved ones. And she was one of the people that lost someone before the blip, right? So that even hits even harder. So we see the series play out. She's creating, obviously, I don't have to pitch the show. You guys have seen it, but it just stuck the landing with focusing on what was initially given to us, which was a character study who was going through grief, who has went through grief with her family, losing her mom and dad through the Sokovia situation with Stark. And we know how that played out, losing her brother Pietro in Age of Ultron, losing Vision. So it's just like, this girl cannot catch a W, man. So I really love how they gave us Westview, her creating the dome, her interacting with Vision, the kids, and obviously all the outside stuff, meaning Monica Rambeau. The only criticisms that I have about the show, a couple things. Number one, Pietro, the Ralph Boner joke was so stupid. So stupid. Why would you bring back the great Evan Peters from obviously the X-Men world, and we were all losing our minds with that kind of implied, the X-Men, Magneto being her dad, it's all happening right now, but it didn't play out that way. So I hated the Pedro punchline. Also, didn't like how it was so character focused. There wasn't a lot of wham bam action going on. We got Agatha coming through, it was Agatha all along. It was all building and then episode 8, I want to say, when we have one of the coldest bars that Marvel's probably ever had, next to Killmonger's line in Black Panther, when my man, when Vision is asked, what is grief, and I can't remember off top, but it's like perseverance. I mean, that line was just so poetic. And then we go to the finale, and it was almost like, man, this is so different from anything we've ever seen. But then they just kind of gave us what we've seen before, which is the big spectacle Marvel fight in the air with her and Agatha. And it didn't stick the landing for me as far as the finale goes. There were some things that I enjoyed about the finale, but overall, it didn't stick to the same tone that they gave us from the previous 8 episodes. But prior to that, Pietro goofy, silly joke, and prior to the ending not really sticking the landing, it's a pretty top tier show for so many different reasons, some of them that I just mentioned. So that to me is an A on my list. Let's go back to it. So now we are here talking about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I mentioned it briefly. This show, unfortunately, was probably affected the most from the pandemic. And if you all do remember, this show was the on WandaVision, just backing up a little bit, that wasn't supposed to be the first project in Phase 4. It was supposed to be Black Widow, if you guys remember. So again, keep that in mind. The pandemic really screwed up some things, but neither here nor there. We're now focusing on what's going on with Falcon and Winter Soldier. So prior to us doing the tier list, we had a conversation about the project so far, and I mentioned how much I adore, how much I love Captain America, the world that they've built, despite espionage themes and just the seriousness of what's going on with the characters. That this was probably at that point one of my most anticipated shows, just because I knew what it was cut from a different cloth, right? So I was just expecting something just deep, intellectual, some really good stuff, and it gave us that for the most part. But at the end of the day, for me, and I really haven't revisited Falcon and Winter Soldier since it last aired, I still couldn't tell you if I feel like Tony or Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson. I really can't. I still don't know why he was hesitant to take the show. I mean, again, they planted in there like, oh, I can't, come behind Cap. What does this shield stand for? Especially when he meets Isaiah. And I get all that, but I didn't think it really stuck the land to really get enough an emphasis on why he was hesitant. And ultimately, what was it that really made him become Cap? I don't think they handled that too well. Bucky PTSD stuff was fine, but if I'm being honest with you all, and this might sound petty, I want Winter Soldier back. Can we get him back, man? I want the Winter Soldier back because the Bucky, good guy, trying to make a change. I get it, I get it. But goddamn, man, Winter Soldier, come on, man, we need him back, man. And I think Thunderbolts. I think Valentina might give him the speech, the whole brainwashing, train yard, whatever the whole spiel was. I hope that she has a backup plan and we can get him back to those Winter Soldier vibes. But anyway, man, the character stuff is there. But the thing that really sucks about this show, gosh, the damn villains, man. The Flag Smashers, I believe their name was, led by the young lady whose name is slipping me right now. Oh my goodness, they were so bad. And the reason they were bad is because, again, if you all remember behind the scenes, it was supposed to be this chemical that was let loose on the world, and they were behind it, and the chemical was too close to home because, as we know, we were going through the pandemic. So I know they had to it really affected them the most because everything that we got with the Flag Smashers was absolute trash. Carly Morganford, I think was her name, if I'm not mistaken. But all that stuff was just horrendous to me. US agent stuff didn't really have a good payoff. You get Val, whatever. I'm not really, I love Julia, but I'm not liking Val so far. She's really not giving me, she's like the polar opposite of Nick Fury. And it's just like they're trying too hard to make her like I don't know. I'm not liking what they're doing with Valentina, but neither here nor there. I don't think it was so much going on with that show and it just didn't stick the landing. And this whole speech at the end with the government just seemed too on the nose and just forced and just, I don't know, man. It had such a good premise and had so much promise, but it just didn't stick the landing for me. So I'm going to put Cap. I'm between a B and a C. Man, I think about those Flag Smashers. Trash. 6 episodes. Trash. Should have been longer. I'm going to put it at a C route. I'm going to see with Captain America, Falcon, and Winter Soldier. It has so much potential, but it just didn't stick to landing. So that's where we're at with Cap. Now that brings us to let me just get this out the way right now. Let me just get this out the way. Yeah, that's right. Loki is my favorite show of the MCU. Did reviews. I did 2-hour live streams. You can watch those videos to really get a more in-depth reason why. But long story short, it's the best produced show. It's the most focused show. It's the best written show. I think it's top tier, no less. But also the story, man. I'm a sucker for time travel, multiverse, and the whole idea that this is the 2012 version of Loki who hasn't seen Dark World, who hasn't seen Ragnarok, who didn't live through the hands of dying through Thanos, but obviously saw all those events that changed him to the person that we get at the end of the series. I thought was so fascinating. Wilson's chemistry was just fantastic. Sylvie was fine. I don't hate that Sylvie, like I don't know, hate's a strong word, but I know some people don't like her, especially they don't like the idea that Loki was like interested in himself. Like, come on, let's just be honest with each other. If you came across your other self, you would probably be attracted to yourself, I would think, but neither here nor there. Anyway, the Sylvie stuff was okay. One of the things that stuck the landing for me was that it stuck the landing, that it lived up to the premise of the idea of the show. And I don't think people have really come to realize how big this show is to the MCU, especially in phase 5. Like literally, if you think about Loki, it sets the stages for everything we're leading into. The multiverse, we're in the multiversal saga right now. Who did we get introduced to in Loki? Kang, or during that, it was He Who Remains, who defeated Kang, who had the, Goliath and all that. Y'all remember the show. It had Kang. And when you think about the finale versus every single show, even WandaVision, which I just talked about so highly, even that show resulted back to, oh yeah, we got to be Marvel. We got to have an action fight scene and all that stuff. That's the only show that's stuck the landing when it came to, they didn't do the normal fight, big spectacle, laser beams, end of the world thing. They literally ended their show on a conversation, which is so fire to me. And it was one of the best conversations with He Who Remains, and the whole Jonathan Majors ate up that scene. Loved it. And again, y'all, you have, for those, and not to everyone, because I know people love Loki like I do, but for those that don't appreciate Loki, you're gonna appreciate it come Kang, when he comes into Ant-Man and Quantum. You're gonna appreciate it when we get to Kang Dynasty. You're gonna appreciate it when we get to Secret Wars. This show is the foundation of what sets the stage for what's to come in Phase 5, Phase 6, and also it's a pretty cool tie-in that happens to be from the person that kicked off Phase 1 and being the villain of the Avengers. It only makes sense. So I can go on and on and on about the score by Natalie Holt, which is the best theme of any top 3. I love the score that Legwood gave us in the Black Panther was pretty fire, and there's some pretty good strings and composed scores in Moon Knight. But Natalie Holt's theme for Loki is fire. So from a production standpoint, from the direction, the story, the acting, implications, it's S tier. Need I say more? Case closed. Loki, one of my favorites. That brings us to our first film of our tier list, which is Black Widow. Listen, the elephant in the room is the film was 10 years too late, which I agree with that sentiment. I do personally think that the film would have been great in Phase 2, as we talked about earlier, but I also think it would have been perfect, if I'm being honest, especially from what the film gave us. It would have been a perfect film to follow up Civil War. It would have just been great. My issue, and let me just go ahead and put this out there. Yeah, it goes right there. C tier for me. My issue with Black Widow, number one, I don't revisit it a lot because it's almost like the Incredible Hulk in the sense of, it's not that it doesn't matter, because we got Yelena, which I love about that film. We got the Red Guardian, which I love about that film, but it didn't really do anything moving the story forward because it was backwards. It was a story that took place in 2017. So the stuff with gosh, you talk about villains, the father of Taskmaster, the way that they handled that, she killed the girl, but she still survived somehow. It was just so stupid. And the third act of that film was atrocious. The CGI was garbage. Again, it went back to the stereotypical, we got to fight, and they were fighting in the sky. The idea is cool, but the execution was just handled terribly. Let me get off my negative horse. The film has some good beats. The first half of the film, to me, is intriguing because it hits on those Captain America Civil War vibes, spy espionage, who can we trust, who's a Black Widow, who's not, what's the Black Widow program, how is it still running, kind of Jason Bourne type of situation. And again, I love Yelena. Florence Pugh is the best thing to come out of that film. I'm very excited to see what the Red Guardian is going to be up to come the Thunderbolts. But at the end of the day, for me, the film did a better job of introducing us to Yelena and introducing us to Red Guardian. And it didn't do a good job of saying goodbye to arguably one of the best Avengers, man. Thinking back on Natasha coming into Iron Man 2, man, just kind of a eye candy type of introduction. But then she ended up kicking a lot of ass in that film, even though Iron Man 2 is not that good. Pretty bad. But, seeing her transition to the Avengers and seeing her in Civil War and Winter Soldier and Infinity War and sacrificing her life in Endgame, I love Natasha. And I thought that the film did a horrible job of saying goodbye to her. I really do. So that's why Black Widow. And again, I don't revisit it a lot because I just find it to be very boring. And it hurts my heart that Natasha went out that way as far as what the film gave us. But neither here nor there, C-list for me. And again, guys, I'm going to get to your comments here, and I appreciate every single one of y'all leaving comments. Again, those that are watching live, thumbs up, share, leave your thoughts and comments. We'll get back to those when we wrap up. But also for those watching this pre-recordedly, leave your list in the comments and let me know how you would be ranking these projects. So now that brings us to What If, Marvel's What If, which for my comic book fans, me being one of them, but I really haven't dove into any of those What If series. I was familiar with the idea, never really explored them. I think this show had some really cool ideas. And just going back to what, if my memory serves me right, The murder mystery episode with Hank Pym being the murderer, killing the Avengers was so dope to me. The zombie episode, and I can't wait to get the zombie animated show next year. I believe is when that's coming out. Marvel Zombies and Thanos being a zombie at the end, and seeing all that stuff is so great. I think the best version of Doctor Strange was in What If. His solo episode had more emotion than his entire first film. The relationship between him and Christine was better than anything that him live action. No disrespect to two great actors, Rachel McAdams and Benedict Cumberbatch. Great actors, but I've never felt the chemistry there, especially in their first film. The second one makes sense because they're literally from different worlds, and I actually kind of like the banter between them in the second film, Into the Multiverse, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I think the best version of the character came from What If. The relationship building was better in What If. And may I remind you, it was only a 30-minute episode. It's probably less than that, and it gave me so much more than a 2-hour movie. So that episode was fire. Then the Ultron taking over. Look, there's what is that, 5 episodes out of the 10 that they gave us? I thought was fantastic. But then there's the Thor episode. Then there's the other stuff. It has a lot of good ideas that just really gets me excited for what we can potentially see. Because they are out there, the Watchers out there. But ultimately, it did have some stinkers. But at the end of the day, I feel as though What If, and not being a big anime, I don't watch a lot of animation as it is. I lean more on the positives than negatives. And yeah, I would watch What If before I would watch Black Widow. I would watch What If before I would watch Falcon and Winter Soldier. I said it. I've said it, and I mean it. I truly mean it. So that's where I'm putting What If series. Now that brings us to my boy, Shang-Chi, baby. I'm going to go ahead and just get this out of the way now. A, B. I'm going to go B. y'all. And yeah, I'm going to go B. Shang-Chi to me, and I actually, funny enough, I watched this, not even to prepare for this stream. It was just, I just wanted to watch it. It was a couple weeks ago. I watched it, man. And that film was so much fun. So entertaining. The first, true hand-to-hand action, choreographed action in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and for the most part was fan-freaking-tastic. It's not on the Raid level, you know what I'm saying? It ain't Ickman or nothing like that, but it's for Marvel standards. It was pretty spectacular. That film does such a good job of building the world, of establishing who the Ten Rings were, which I still kind of wish it was dove into a little bit further, but we'll probably have a series for that in the future. I thought it did such a good job of world building. I thought it did a good job of establishing who Shang-Chi was. It was my first time being introduced to Simu Liu, who I'm a big fan of now, and I'm excited to see what he does, not only with his character, but other projects he's attached to. The Barbie film, which is coming out next year. I'm excited to see what comes of that. But I thought I did a good job of doing that. And when we talk about villains, man, Wen-Wu is that dude. Wen-Wu is the best character in the film. This is my criticism. I hate that they killed him, and also again some other criticisms. But overall, I thought it had one of the best villains of the entire MCU. Some of the best fight scenes. I thought Daniel Destin Cretton, who's going to be directing Kang Dynasty, who I've been a fan of prior to Shang-Chi, Short Term 12, Just Mercy. He's a great character director. He cares more so about what are these characters about, what motivates them, what drives them, all that different stuff. And his story is pivotal in how he tells his movie. So I'm a big Daniel Destin Cretton fan. Very excited to see what we do with Kang. Direction was solid, but pivoting over to why it's not on the A tier, and it's definitely not on the S tier. The film to me takes a huge dip in tone and in quality and seriousness. I'm going to say it right now, and I said it when I reviewed the film, and I still stand by this. I am not a Trevor fan. I do not like Trevor. Not to the fact that it was a big, middle finger to the Mandarin back in Iron Man 3, but I just don't find him to be funny, man. The concept of an actor, that concept is interesting, but it's just once he gets into the film just becomes like this Disney family It was just over the top for me. I'm not a Trevor fan. And then also when it comes to the third act of the film, I still stand behind Wen-Wu versus Shang-Chi versus Lei Ling, I think was her name. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but his sister. I thought that would have been a better way to conclude it. And I'm talking about a hand-to-hand combat fight with their father. I would have preferred that more so than the dragon CGI fest that we got in the film. So that's kind of my issues with the movie. Didn't need Trevor, and I thought the CGI and the big spectacle angle to take was just a little bit too much for me. But overall, outside of that, it's a pretty good film, man. And I revisit that more so than I do a lot of the other projects in Phase 4. So that's where Shang-Chi lands on my list. So now that brings us down to the Eternals. The Eternals, man. The Eternals, y'all. Hot take. I'm going to let that marinate right quick. I'll take a sip of water. For the Eternals, I don't know if I'll be drinking this water right now because they provided so much to the world. No, I was rewatching this the other night because, man, I don't think, and this is no shade to anyone out there, I don't think people, I don't want to say people didn't get it because it has its, it has its valid criticisms. But going back to Loki, I don't think people really understand what Chloe was going for in regards to just the humanity of the film. And again, this film does suffer from MCU-isms, like at the third act, which the third act is not bad, by the way, but it does result to the shoot 'em up, bang, bang, big fight, whatnot, which again, Makari fire. But again, the way that they establish the importance of the Eternals and the understanding of Celestials and the understanding of this predetermined type of, you're on this path of making sure that Earth is protected from the deviants, which I'm just going to get my negatives out of the way. The deviants were trash. The deviants are just so bad. They were so bad. You could have just had just the philosophical differences should have been a theme. And the villain of the film was just how, obviously Ajax had different philosophy than what Druid had and so on and so forth. I think they should have just stuck with eternal fights, literally internally, them fighting versus the deviants. But neither here nor there. The film is just so thought-provoking, and I'm a nerd when it comes to, again, I mentioned how I love science fiction and time travel and multiverse. I love a story about just thinking about who are we on this earth? Why is it important? And all that different stuff just to me is just such good talking points. I thought the film did a good job of establishing who they are. Now, on that same note, it doesn't do a good job of connecting to the MCU, which the film shouldn't have to, worry so much about it. But it is a pivotal film. It's literally the foundation of how, Earth was created in the MCU. But the whole, the Celestial being in the Indian Ocean, which this theory that's been online that I've seen of some projects taking place outside the 616, I think if that theory is to be true, and we're really in the multiverse and we don't realize it, I think that film might be one of those projects. Is no one except for I think She-Hulk addressed that there's a big ass Celestial in the Indian Ocean. It was like on the side of her computer, but neither here nor there, man. I really, really love Eternals. I love what it was going for. I love the way it looks, the way it feels, the way it makes me feel watching it. And listen, I get that people think it's boring and it's too long, too slow. We needed a series to explore these characters. I disagree, but that's the beauty of these films. We can all agree, disagree, but I'm sticking by it, man. Eternals, I think people just like Loki will appreciate the show as time goes by. This is an A tier for me. Now we get on to Hawkeye. And I'm going to go ahead and just, yep, I said it. It's a D. It's a Disney Plus D for me. Hawkeye had a good idea, but oh my gosh. The idea of Clint Barton, who, we didn't really get to spend a lot of time with. We got him in briefly in the first Thor film. He's, brainwashed in the Avengers. He has his moments to shine in Age of Ultron. That was the most we got the time to spend with him, with his family and all that stuff. That was nice. Civil War, he has a moment to shine a bit. But really, and then in Game, obviously, we know where his character was. But this show had so much that they could have given us with Clint Barton, in particularly, going back to Endgame. The idea of Ronin going around killing mofos because he lost his family. Why do you deserve to be here? Why didn't you get Thanos taking out the different gangs, the cartels, all the triad? I mean, he's taking out fools left and right because he feels like he's doing the right thing, right? He's on his Punisher stuff. Like, I'm the judge, the jury, the executor. Such a good idea to explore. What does a Ronin look like after he gets his family back? How does he deal with those demons? How does he deal with all that red blood, all that red in his ledger, as Loki said to Natasha? Man, we spent about 2 seconds on that, bro. We know that he killed Echo. Don't even get me started on that. How they bait and switch that, but she kills his father under the orders of of a person we'll discuss here in a second. Under those orders, he does that, and I love Christmas. I love a good Christmas story. I love a good family story, and that's where I'm going to try to pivot over to my positives. Kate Bishop, positive. Really excited to see what we're going to see her again. Which the word on the street is we might see her pop up in Ant-Man, Quantumanium. Her and Casey Lane might be friends, might know each other, might become friends in the film. We'll see. I like what they brought with that character. I'm excited for Haley to reprise that character. I love Yelena. I love the banter between those two, and their back and forth was so great. Other positives. I think that's about it for me, man. I thought they wasted the Ronin plot. I thought they completely shafted introducing us to Echo to get me excited about her show, which I am not. The only thing that I'm curious to see is, no offense to Echo, but I'm more excited to see Kingpin, which we'll get into that person in a bit, Kingpin and Daredevil and how that ties into the world and all that stuff. But I'm going to give it a chance because I don't think Hawkeye didn't do a better enough job to get me excited for her. Vera Farmiga, who I'm a fan of, wasn't a fan of what they did to that character. And her husband, who I know is great in Better Call Saul, wasted him. The thing that I will never, and also the LARPers and the fire, all that stuff was trash, bro. I'm sorry. The thing that I will never forgive Marvel for doing, well, two things. We'll get to Wakanda a little bit later, but Kingpin, you just showed me Daredevil, 3 seasons. Fantastic if you haven't seen it. You gave me this menacing, complex, layered individual, Vanessa, in Daredevil. And I couldn't have been happier to hear that Vincent D'Onofrio, Charlie Cox are coming back in the MCU. Very excited to see them on screen again for the first time. You gave me all those years of just great character development, and then you inject him into the MCU. Couldn't be happier. And you bring him into Hawkeye. And I get the whole Hawaiian shirt thing was a callback to one of his first appearances in the comics. All that stuff, the tie-ins to Echo, all that stuff makes sense. But the execution, bro, not good. You have this man ripping doors off of cars like he's powered up. This is a different version than what we saw in Daredevil. This dude is a beast. Ripping car doors off. And I hate when comic book movies, when movies in general do this, when you bring in this menacing or even a hero, you bring in this character that is skilled and just, a very formidable individual. And then you dumb them down. You lower down their power set to match the power set of who your hero is of the story, which in this case was Kate Bishop. And this isn't a male versus female conversation because I don't stand in that park. But the conversation is, how the hell did Kate Bishop, and she didn't go bar for bar, blow for blow with Kingpin, but the fact that she did defeat him blows my mind. And the way she went about doing it after getting literally haymakers to the stomach, to getting thrown around like a rag doll. I don't want to revisit those conversations because I just didn't buy it. Anyway, D+, Disney+, Hawkeye, D for me. So much promise, completely undercooked development, undercooked 6 episodes. It was just, yeah, not my fave, y'all. Not my fave, as y'all can tell. That brings us down to, let's get this out the way. Spider-Man No Way Home. After a year or 2 years or so of just box office failures, I didn't even mention this whole time. I forgot to bring it up because I've been on my soapbox. I'm going to bring it back just a little bit, and I'm going to actually bring it up with this film since we're talking about it. Financially, for some reason I thought Spider-Man only did 1.3. I did not know that Spider-Man almost made $2 billion at the box office. I did not know that. This is literally, you're seeing this lot. I did not know that. For some reason I thought they were at 1.3. I thought they capped off at 1.3. I did not know that movie almost made $2 billion, but deservingly so. This film, and then also too, while we're at it, let's just see what the people at home. 93% and 98% audience score. Yeah, box office success, man. Love Homecoming. as I mentioned earlier, No Way Home or Far From Home is an okay film. Again, Spider-Man outside of New York, and I'm not the biggest fan of that film. But this film here had a lot of legwork to do for me because all up until that point, Iron Man Jr. Can this man, and I'm referring to Peter Parker, or I should say this boy at this point, can he get his own story? Can we see him build based on his own like stuff that he's done, and not off of, okay, we're fighting these villains that are tied to Iron Man. Vulture's mad at Iron Man, and it ties into Spider-Man. Mysterio was fired from Iron Man, so now he has hatred towards Peter Parker. I like, can we just get a Peter Parker story, please? And it was built off of his story. It was built off of him killing, which, man, they need to bring back Mysterio, but it was off of him killing Mysterio, which tied into this film, the ramifications of that in the first half of the film, the court stuff, the Charlie Cox appearance from Daredevil, which was so dope. See that in theaters. And people like us, we knew that it was coming, but it was still a great reveal seeing him in the MCU for the first time. Then him diving into, okay, what does my life look like after all this stuff? I want to go to college. I want to go to MIT, me, MJ, my man Ned, and living my life. Unfortunately, he goes to Doctor Strange, who's trash. It's all Doctor Strange's fault. The man can't. You telling me this man gets distracted by a kid saying, "Hey, can you do this?" He gets distracted by Spider-Man, but yet this man is a surgeon for however many years. With talk about distractions, you got someone's life in your hand, and you did someone talking to you. Anyway, I don't like Doctor Strange. If you can't tell, at least in the MCU. But anyway, he messes up the spell, and in come the goats. Doc Ock and my man Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe, coming back. Man, this film, and I know some of the criticism. Some people say when they watch it, and I can agree with it. Obviously, the theatrical experience is like no other versus when you see it at home. Again, it's a different experience. I get that, but the story's still there. The performances are still there. One of the best fight sequences is still there, and that's my Spider Boy into Spider-Man going toe to toe, hand-to-hand combat with Green Goblin, WWF style, power driver through the floors. That fight is so visceral. I love it. Leading to Aunt May's death, leading to him just abandoning it all and just saying the grief, which is a through line through this phase 4. I've lost everything, and it was all due to my mistake. That's a Peter Parker story, man. He always blames himself for the bad stuff that happens to him, man. And just seeing that on top of the grief. And then you put the ice on the cake. And you talk about Hollywood's biggest secret. We all knew that Toby and Andrew were in the film a damn year before the film came out. It was just like they never left. They just stepped right back into the roles, them mentoring Peter, while even still managing to have a little bit of their story, what Andrew's been up to, that he's kind of went rogue after losing Gwen, seeing that MJ and who was trash, by the way, in those trilogies of films. MJ was for the streets, bro. But MJ and Toby figuring their stuff out and, being, I think he said I'm assuming they're married. They managed to get that in there, and then they managed to give you this great nostalgia of the 3 Spider-Man working together versus Doc Ock. Well, Doc Ock helped them, but working against, Lizard and Green Goblin and Sandman. I'll never forget seeing that. That's one of those, like, you'll never forget where you were when you saw Spider-Man No Way Home for the first time. And it's a good movie, man. And again, what it did to me, it gave me a Peter Parker story first. That's what I love about the first half. It's all about Peter. They gave me his story. They showed me the transition from a boy to a man. And then they ended on such obviously we're going to get more Spider-Man, but just for whatever reason, if they decide tomorrow that they're not going to do it anymore, it's a perfect ending. It's a perfect ending, man. So I can't speak highly enough about the film. And it has its criticism. I don't want to sit here and act like it's a perfect movie. It has the stereotypical jokes that didn't always land. It has some of the kind of like, wait, how does this, Electro, some of the stuff is a little bit not as fluid as it could have been. But overall, man, shout out to John Watts, who I've said it before and I'll say it again. Previous to Spider, and I honestly still kind of feel this way, I couldn't tell you what a John Watts film looks like. because I don't think he has, like we talked about the Russos earlier. We know what a Russo brother film looks like. We know what a Taika Waititi film looks like. We know what a Ryan Coogler film looks like. But what does a John Watt movie look like? Prior to this film, I couldn't tell you that. But in this, in No Way Home, I got a sense of kind of what he brings to the table. And I heard his show that he had with on FX, Old Man. I think that's the title of it, with Jeff Bridges, and I believe he directed like the first 3 episodes, setting the tone for that show. I heard it's a pretty good show. But shout out to John Watts, man. He brought it home. He brought it no way home with that one. So that is an S tier for me all day, every day, which brings us to kind of our final run here. And again, shout out to everyone watching live and watching the replay. Thumbs up, share, comment, subscribe. We're going to get to those comments here. I see a lot of them. I'm going to get to them once we wrap up, which we're going to get done here in a little bit. Moon Knight. How do I feel about Moon Knight? I feel pretty good about it. TV show. Just being number one. Come on, man. Oscar Isaac, give that man a damn. I know you can't get an Oscar for a TV show, but if you could, give it to him. Obviously, it's an Emmy. Fantastic performance. I knew about Moon Knight, but I didn't know about like the origins and all. That's why I think, because from what I understand, people that I know that read the comics, I love the character, weren't the biggest fan of the show because it didn't give them what they were hoping for, which, that's another conversation about expectations, about ultimately, okay, that's what I wanted it to be, but then this is what it ended up being, and then criticizing it or praising it based off of what you got. But I understand the criticism about like just the origins of the character was kind of muffled, fumbled for some people that are comic book fans. And again, I didn't know much about him, but I really enjoyed what we got from, and this is crazy coming from me because I was like, Steven, man, this dude is a bumbling idiot. This is going to be the first half of the show, is spending time with Steven. By the time we got to that 6th episode and we thought that Steven died in the the sand dunes or whatever, that it stuck the landing, man, because they built it. They led up to that point. Big fan of Mark Spector and the trials and tribulations he went through, the whole, being a mercenary and what that does to a person. Lila, I believe was her name. I thought she was great, and seeing the first Egyptian hero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was fantastic and not force fed. I thought it was organic to the narrative. I thought the emotional moments hit when that episode 5, when we went into Mark, who he was as a kid, and him and his mom losing his brother, and why he created Steven, and again knowing that Steven was the butt of the joke, the nerd, the weak element of his characteristics. And then you find out that he was the reason that Mark survived his childhood. Was so fantastic, man. And then obviously tying that into Jake Lockley and what that looks like in the season 2, or, hopefully in the Midnight Suns. It's great, man. But if I were to criticize the show, it result back to such a character-driven story. Arthur Hero, played by Ethan Hawke, was great, and just focusing on these gods and what it means to believe in the gods of the MCU, and belief systems, and all kind of presenting to the table, and all the different stuff that we got there. It was really setting the stage for something spectacular. But then they resort, they go back to the trope of, we got to be Marvel. We got to have these big ass gods fighting in Cairo, which these souls are being sucked out of people. And there's it felt so off compared to everything else. So that's my criticism, that it relied on the MCU-isms. And then also my biggest issue, not enough Moon Knight. Am I right? Not enough Moon Knight. And also, Steven, shout out to you. Mr. Knight is one of the coolest looking mofos I've ever seen. And come on, man. Obviously, he had his little moment at the end, but the look was so dope. And I just think that the character they gave it to wasn't as dope, with Steven being, a bumbling idiot. But then again, like I said, I just wanted more Moon Knight, and I wanted more of that supernatural. I think it was either episode 4 or 3, when they went to Egypt and they were fighting those mummies. I'm like, and it was like the mummy was doing the performance of ripping off the dude's inside. I'm like, that's what I thought we were going to be getting all 6 episodes. Supernatural, dark, more horror vibes, but it didn't really give us that. So that's kind of where my criticism lies. But I take the good with the bad, and that good outweighs the bad to me, which ultimately, I know who Mark Spector is. I know who Steven, is. And I'm excited to learn who Jake is. So it stuck the landing for me as far as being excited to see what's coming next. And I thought it stuck the landing for giving us a character that I'm excited to see moving forward. So that's why it's a B for me. Miss Marvel. How am I feeling about Miss Marvel? Pains me to do this. The reason I say it pains me to do is I'm putting it in C tier is because number one, all the stuff Falcon and her beliefs, her culture, her family, bro. The best family in the MCU off bat. I love the banter of her and her mom and her dad and her brother. I love that family, man. I can't wait to see them again in the Marvels. That was great. The first 2 or 3 episodes, coming of age, kind of that Breakfast Club type of energy going on, anti-teenager stuff. I'm a big fan of the genre coming of age, so that was just sticking the landing for me. And all that stuff was just so great. Learning who she is, self-discovery, all that stuff. But then we talk about the Flag Smashers. I can't even remember the name of the villains in this show. Oh my goodness, help me out. Oh, I'll get to Charlotte Blake. I can't remember the name of the villains, but they were forced into the show. And you talk about lack of world building, the world outside of the world, all that stuff. It's like, wait, can we explore that more? All the superhero stuff in Miss Marvel was really bad, like really bad. All the human story, the groundedness of the character Macaulay Khan and her family, and again, high school, all this stuff that's with the religion, all that stuff was great. Oh yeah, we got to make a Marvel show. That's where it dropped the ball for me. And even the stuff when she went back to, going back to her history with her grandmother or her great grandmother, that stuff was just great, man. All that stuff was great. I'm trying to look up the villain's name. I can't find them, but anyway, in the damage control stuff was whack. Red Daggers was cool, but they didn't really explore that. Oh man, it's so much potential, man. But again, character stuff is great because, again, similar to Moon Knight, I'm excited to see Kamala again. I'm excited to see her family again. I can't wait to see them in the Marvels. I think she's going to steal the show. Her and Monica, I think, are going to be great. Hopefully, Captain Marvel can be boosted up with those cool personalities being surrounded by her. And I'm really Nia DaCosta. I think she's a great director. So I'm intrigued by the Marvels. But anyway, it has so much potential, but it dropped the ball with the superhero stuff. Like, to me, that was the weak, like, it was just so weak the way that they handled that stuff. So C list for me. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. All right, we're going here with it. Reasons being this to be for me. I'm a horror fan. I'm a Sam Raimi fan. And I love that they gave Sam Raimi the reins to make a Marvel horror movie, essentially. And it could have leaned into horror a lot more, if we're being honest with each other. But I enjoyed what we got from Sam Raimi and the angles and his, the tropes that he used, or I should say tropes, but the sensibilities that he has as a director was great. I mentioned earlier, I do not like Doctor Strange. No. But I enjoyed him a little bit more than I did in his solo outing. We also get a little bit of his individual story, which it's a small line, but it's at least it lets you know why he became a doctor. Small line again, I mentioned. He had a sister. He lost his sister. That's why he's a doctor. It's small, but at least I like stuff like that, man. Like, okay, you understand them. The Illuminati scene, man. So dope. Which brings me to why I like this film. Miss Wanda, come through with your anger, with your vengeance. You're looking for your boys. A mother would do anything for her children, and she killed a lot of folks. Wanda Maximoff, a.k.a. the Scarlet Witch, bro, stole that movie, man. When she went to the 81838 and stole that body of that version of Wanda, was great. When she looked at Mr. Fantastic and said, "Oh, Black Bolt, what about? He can speak. He has no mouth," and then ripping him up like a bunch of spaghetti. Mr. Fantastic taking out Sharon with her own shield. Captain Marvel, her kill was a little bit anticlimactic, but then, oh my goodness, shout out to Charles Xavier, man. That man never gets the good end of the stick. My man got stabbed in the chest in his sleep in Logan. My man got disintegrated from the Dark Phoenix and X-Men Last Stand. The man can never catch a good, can he just die of natural causes? My man gets his face snapped in half, bro. It's a good film. It's a really good film, man. It has really good pacing. It just gets right into it. But I'm not going to stunt. America Chavez felt just like a plot device. I really didn't care for her character if I'm thinking about it more. I'm excited to see what they do with her, especially in a multiverse where she can hop from multiverse to multiverse. She's going to be huge coming phase 5, man. But best believe that. But they didn't handle it that well. I wouldn't say it wasn't as it's kind of that same ballpark as like Echo, like the way that they introduce Echo and how they introduce America Chavez. It could have been handled a lot better. The stuff that didn't really make sense to me was this film is based on the events of what happened from obviously, and you would want that, right? As far as, okay, the film, it makes sense that we're on this journey because of what happens in this film. But I didn't like how they didn't address literally 3 months ago. Wait, why isn't Doctor Strange addressing what he did with Peter Parker's spell being messed up? Like, why isn't that the main reason why the multiverse is screwed up? Because he screwed it up and he has to fix it. But that, to me, I thought that they missed an opportunity to connect those two stories because he was pivotal. He was the reason. He was one of the reasons why the multiverse was open. So I thought they dropped the ball there. Wong is my boy. He's a new superior, obviously the Sorcerer Supreme. I enjoy Wong, but I thought that he could have been a little bit more. I wish he was more involved in the B plot or the A plot, him and Strange, and substituting obviously Stranger in America, but it is what it is. We got her in the film. And ultimately, man, when I think about this film and the idea that Kevin Feige and the crew said how pivotal this was going to be to the MCU, I don't see that, man. Like I said, I think Loki is Loki and the Eternals are the biggest films of the MCU as far as what it means for the future. I don't think Doctor Strange lived up to that premise. Like the multiverse of madness, what madness did we get in this film? I didn't really get the madness besides the 838 being wrecked by Wanda. That was like the only thing, but it didn't have the, and again, like I said earlier, not to be a hypocrite, my expectations and what we got, I'm not trying to blur the lines, but again, the title, Multiverse of Madness, it didn't live up to the title. I'll just say that. But at the end of the day, I lean more heavily on the positives than I do the negatives. So that's why Wanda in the Multiverse of Madness. No, that's why Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is coming in at a B for me. Thor, Love and Thunder. Oh boy. So when I saw the film, I think I gave it a 3.5, because I thought I don't really care for Thor right now as far as in the MCU. They're using him to kind of fit that narrative of kind of joke. So I didn't take it too seriously. So when I saw it, I was like, I was entertained. I like Gore. I like Jane. I like some of the visual effects, which is, was kind of bad overall, but I liked when they were on the planet and it was like the black and white. That scene was pretty cool. And I like what they were going for in the narrative as far as, Gore losing his daughter and how Jane was losing her life and how they paralleled those stories and how that came ahead. But unfortunately, you have two other hours of just like an SNL skit that just ran too long, man. The film, and this is coming from a Ragnarok fan, which was improv all day, every day, but it was still a better cohesive film to me that had a better story and took itself more seriously than Love and Thunder. Gore, man, that's a missed opportunity, because I thought Christian Bale, because he is Christian Bale, he gave me more than was given to him on the script. I felt more for what he was going through than what we actually saw on the screen. And I also, speaking of on screen, Gore the God Butcher literally kills one god on screen, but throughout the duration of the film, which is bananas to me. So a missed opportunity there. And then also Korg, Taika, Ego. Did Korg really need to be in the film? No. And if he was going to be in the film, why didn't you just leave him dead to have Thor have the emotional resonance of seeing his best friend die? But no, they bring him back and make a big joke out of it. The film just was, and this is coming from a Taika Waititi fan. Everything I've seen from this man has been golden. I mean, I'm talking about The Hunt of the Wilder People. I'm talking about What They Do in the Shadows. I'm talking about one of my favorite films of 2019, Jojo Rabbit, the Thor Ragnarok. And I just think he's such a cool, creative individual. The episodes he directed in The Mandalorian, fantastic. For some reason, man. And listen, I don't know this man's intentions, but every time I saw him interview for this film, it just seemed like it was a joke. Like it was just like, there's this variety thing that he did. It was him. I think it was Tessa Thompson. They're like breaking down a scene, and they're like, this is one shot where he literally says on camera in front of millions of people, well, not in the crowd, but obviously it's out there on the internet, you guys can find. She's like, wait a minute, wait, why did you keep that shot in the film? It was like me looking at it was something weird. He's like, oh yeah, I don't know. It just goes to show you that he didn't have the care and the attention to detail as he did with Ragnarok. It just seemed like it was just like Thor gets a fourth film. Okay, I guess we'll just go balls to the wall and just do some crazy shit, which they end up doing, which brings me to, I keep forgetting to bring this up, box office thing that I had pulled up and had it prepped for you guys, and I keep forgetting because I'm on my damn soapbox. 1160 domestically or worldwide, 417 internationally, 343. Not bad, but it's a step back, man, because if I'm not mistaken, didn't Ragnarok do, oh my goodness, yeah, almost 100 million, almost 100 million more. It's almost like 80 million more than that because it's a better film, number one. But yeah, it's a step back, man. Again, listen, I'm not laughing at $760 million, but it is domestic or financially, it didn't do as good as the first one. 64% still, rotten or positive, I should say, film, and it's a 77%. But again, if we look at what came before it, Rock, 93, 87. I would agree with those numbers. I really enjoyed Thor Ragnarok on a very, very entertaining level, and also just a good movie to me. So yeah, definitely a step in the wrong direction when it comes to the follow-up. And unfortunately, that fourth film lands on. Yeah, I gotta do that. Y'all. I gotta do that. Brings us to She-Hulk, which I reviewed on the channel week to week. Shout out to my man Chris and all the various guests we've had, and shout out to all the guests. So I've had guests on all these shows that we covered the last 2 years. So shout out to them. But She-Hulk, man, 9 episodes. I think I'm a little bit more. Let me just go ahead and put it where I think it belongs. Some people might put it a D, an F, all the way to Z. But the reason what I took away from She-Hulk, number one, again, it goes back to what were you expecting from the show? And this is no disrespect to the character She-Hulk, who I wasn't all that too familiar with from the comics, but I knew a little something from, a little something. I didn't go in with like, okay, I know this character. This is what I expect from this character, and all that stuff. I didn't go in with really close to no expectations. But I came out at the end of the day. I go back to when we talked about WandaVision. What did they tell? What was the pitch? The pitch was a procedural weekly court case and learning who Jennifer Walters is and her wacky, what her life looks like. And I think that the court stuff could have been a lot better. Let's be honest. But I feel like as though they did a good job of introducing me to this character that I would say that I'm not over the moon about seeing again, but I'm excited to see how she fits within the world of the MCU. Let me see how she interacts with like a Deadpool, how she interacts with like a Peter Parker. I thought that the chemistry she had with Charlie Cox in the episode that we got in episode 7 or 8, I thought was good, which was the best episode to me. And not even because Charlie Cox was in it, which was a bonus for me. It was kind of like a bonus more so than it made the episode. What made that episode to me was it lived on the premise. We saw the court stuff going on. Her dealing with the dude that burnt his suit and how that tied into the costumer, the guy that made the suits for him, Jacob, I think was his name. So that episode to me was like, it was a perfect example. Like if someone asked me, hey, Elliot, what is She-Hulk about? What is She-Hulk about? I'll say, watch that episode. And that's what She-Hulk's about. Everything else to me is kind of filler, kind of lackadaisical, kind of ridiculous, kind of not my cup of tea. But again, I love what Tatiana Maslany did. She carries that show. And it baffles me that show continuously tried to make it seem like these dudes thought that she was like ugly or something. That's so weird the way they kept playing it. But again, they're in LA, so I know everyone's, I guess, a supermodel out there or whatever. But anyway, I thought Tatiana was great. I thought that the finale was so fun. Just the meta nature of them going to Disney Plus was hilarious to me. I never thought the words that I'm about to say would come out of my mouth, that we got Meg the Stallion twerking in Disney with She-Hulk. Can I say that again? Meg the Stallion twerking with She-Hulk on Disney Plus. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know, but I've seen it. I saw it. It exists. It's real. It happened, and it happened. So overall, man, like I said, I didn't have the biggest expectations, and I had a good little laugh out of the things that I took away from it. Also, shout out to Madison, who give her a spinoff series. I thought she was great. Her and Wong on a multiversal trip. Sign me up, bro. So She-Hulk is a C for me. Werewolf by Night. Let me just get this out the damn way now. Boom. That's right. S tier. This goes back to me being a horror fan, but this also goes back to me talking about who are these characters? What are they about? Why do they do the things they do? And within an hour, I got an idea of who Jack is. I have an idea of what drives Elsa in that less than an hour. Mind you, we got shows here that are like 6-8 hours of characters that were just like, I'm looking at you, Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm looking at you, Hawkeye. We spend time with those characters, and I don't feel like I learned anything new about them. But I learned a lot about these characters, and I love the world that it sets up. Obviously, it's kind of disconnected from the MCU, which I was perfectly fine with, and I actually prefer to see that kind of more often than not. Establish who you are first, and then throw us in the ring, right? And that's what I'm excited for. The supernatural's coming. Werewolves, vampires. We got witches. We got sorcerers. Now we're getting more into the supernatural, which means Werewolf by Night, Moon Knight, Doctor Strange, Blade, Daredevil, Ghost Rider. They're coming, baby. They're coming, and I'm here for it, man. And also just from a production standpoint, I thought it was great what Michael Giacchino did, who's one of my favorite composers. The way he captured recreating those old throwback Universal Monsters films from the beginning of the special presentation with the black and white and tearing the Marvel Cinematic logo up. And then again, just the journey we go on with the character, small isolated situation, one night bottle type of event. It was great. Shout out to my man, Man Thing, who was great as well. And I'm very excited to, correct me if I'm wrong, Elsa, I think her name is Elsa. I'm really excited to get more of her, especially now that she has the Bloodstone, and what that could mean for the MCU. Very, very excited. Overall, that special was special. No pun intended. But now that brings us to last but not least, Black Panther. Go ahead and it's been a week. Hold on. Let me put this right. Oops, nope, not a D. It's not a D. Can I not put it back? Okay, let me just go ahead and put it. It's been a week since I've seen it. And the more and more I think about it, there's a lot of logical plot holes in the film. And the theme of tearing down the traditions, very Last Jedi-ish, because the more I think about this film, it really just kind of like almost slaps Black Panther in the face of how the rules were established. And I'm someone that likes to muck up things. I like when stories can do that, flip itself on the head, but it feels disrespectful the way that they handle some of the lore that was established so well in one of my favorite movies, The Grief, recasting T'Challa, how they handle all that. Some of the stuff, oh man, Ryan Coogler, performances, the Queen, the Death, Namor. They don't call him General. They don't call him King. They call him El Kukulkan. Man, his intro, fire. Score, fire. They made this with a heavy heart, for better or for worse. Oh, man. Where am I at with it, man? Where am I at with Black Panther, bro? I'm going to leave it there for now. I gave it a 3.5. I've only seen it once. I plan on seeing it probably on Disney Plus, because if we're being honest, I don't think it's a film that has that much rewatchability, because it is such a heavy film, and it is a character that I love in T'Challa. It's a my man T'Challa here. Rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. I'm at a B right now for it. But it's a lot of stuff that film does to me that just pisses me off, man. Like I said, Queen Ramona, and if you guys saw my video that I put out the other day, Angela wasn't a fan of that idea, nor was I. And I've seen and I've read the comments, because the video is out there, especially on TikTok. It created a lot of discussions about it. And I see how people feel like it was a way to motivate Shuri and all that stuff, but I still believe that you don't have to kill. For some reason, there's this idea, and it's no slight or knock at people. Some people think that to have stakes in your film, that means someone's gonna die. To have someone, be motivated to become who they want to be, someone's gonna die. I don't think that has to be the case. I don't think they had the kill the Queen Ramonda based on Shuri already lost her dad. Shuri already lost T'Challa. Shuri just lost, her nation's flooded right now, right? So I think there was enough stuff to motivate her to get her to the point that she ends up at the end of the film. But neither here nor there. Not a fan of that decision. Again, the lore of the film to me just kind of is kind of thrown out of the front door. And this is a lot of stuff that just didn't sit well with me. But again, I go back to what went into making the film, how it was, if I can't even speak, if this was in any other one's hands, I think it would have been bad, really bad, if we're being honest with each other, like really bad. But I think Ryan did some interesting things, took some swings for the fences, struck out sometimes. M'Baku sideline like a mofo. Okoye did the best they could. Nakia, oh my goodness, Nakia Lupita Nyong'o, fire. Didn't do a lot with her, unfortunately. And I still feel this way, man. I don't feel like I give her props. I give her roses. I thought Letitia, she did what she did. She did the best she can, but I just didn't feel like she was the lead of that film, y'all. I really don't. I feel like the Queen had more gravitas, had more of that leading atmosphere, had that leading presence to her. I feel like Okoye had more of that presence that I was looking for. But man, you could just tell, man, this is one of the, and again, I got an hour stream on my video or an hour discussion about it, and I got my spoiler-free review. So, it is what it is. This is where we're at. We're at a B. This is the list, y'all. Screenshot it, snapshot it, put it in the books. This is my tier list of Phase 4. Now, to wrap it up, we're not going to wrap up the stream, but to wrap up this pre-recorded portion of the video, and because we got a lot of comments that I see here. Let me know in the comments, y'all, those that are watching this pre-recorded version of it, your list. What do you think I'm crazy for putting there? What do you think I missed out on? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to leave the full feature, this almost 2-hour stream, in the description of this video so you can get my final thoughts, which we're going to actually have the discussion about. Okay, now let's look at Phase 4. Check out that video. You all are great.